This is part 6 of this Super Bowl video series. You need to watch part 1 through 5 first. I will leave the links to parts 1 through 5 in the description box below this video. But this is part 6. All right, this is part 6. Part 6 is filled with some of the most amazing information you will ever learn in your life. I recommend highly listening to every minute of this video, but make sure you also listen to the end of this video, because at the end of this video, I will demonstrate how the 1,335 days in Daniel chapter 12, the final chapter of the prophetic book of the prophet Daniel, is revealing the year of the resurrection rapture. People, those that are interested in Bible prophecy are, I'm sure, familiar with this 1,335 days, but I will demonstrate how God has clearly used it to point to the year, because as most people that are interested in prophecy know, God uses the day for a year prophecy rule in Bible prophecy. It is so profound. So make sure you watch this entire video. I realize it's all the way to part 6. Do I have anything more interesting to say? Well, if you've watched the other 5 parts, you'll know that, of course, I have many interesting things to say about the Super Bowl and Super Bowls in general. So anyway, with that said, what this video will be consisting of is segments of a video that I made last year before Super Bowl 55. Of course, the reason why I'm reposting it is because it's no different, no less relevant now than it was back then. And it applies to what has already been explained in the previous 5 parts as well. As you will see, well, let me just get into it here. We're gonna be looking at kicks again. God is pointing to kickers, and I've got a lot of more profound information for you. So here we go. Let's begin by saying that this Super Bowl will be Super Bowl 55, and it will be the 50th Super Bowl of the modern era. What I mean by the modern era is that the AFL and NFL merged and began holding Super Bowls as a championship game between the 2 winners of their 2 leagues. But the 2 leagues didn't fully merge until the 1970 season, when they, for the first time, began playing each other in the regular season. And so that's what's meant by the modern era. This will be the 50th Super Bowl of the modern era. God uses 50 years connections frequently. It's amazing how they just keep coming up in his big picture of signs, patterns, and connections. This includes the recent 2 Super Bowls. And so what I'm saying is that we have a precedent for the prophetic significance of this Super Bowl based on the previous 2 Super Bowls, which also demonstrated a 50 years connection. It's just amazing. I won't explain the details because I need to focus on this topic here, this Super Bowl. But last year's Super Bowl was the Kansas City Chiefs' first Super Bowl appearance in literally 50 years. And again, the Kansas City Chiefs symbolized Pentecost, or rather fire, and fire symbolizes Pentecost. I've explained that before. I won't explain it again. Also, the 49ers were in the Super Bowl, and in the Omer count to Pentecost, it is a 49 and a 50-day count. That's why the 49ers were in the Super Bowl last year. And I explained the significance of this in other videos. The Super Bowl before this, Super Bowl 53, between the New England Patriots and the Los Angeles Rams, which was an extremely prophetic Super Bowl, was the record lowest scoring Super Bowl of all of Super Bowl history. God uses all-time records to confirm his signs, and that was the case with this Super Bowl. And what it was pointing to was the Super Bowl 50 years prior to this, Super Bowl III, because these are the 2 Super Bowls in which the winning team only scored 1 touchdown. God confirmed this through the touchdown that the New England Patriots scored. A touchdown is 7 points, including the extra point. And this touchdown was scored with exactly 7 minutes and 0 seconds left to play in the game, which was more confirmation of these connections between these two touchdowns. In fact, it was a 3 sets of 7. These two Super Bowl victors, 50 years exactly apart, scored only one touchdown, which is 2 sevens. And the second of these two touchdowns occurred with exactly 7 minutes and 0 seconds left in the game, which is a third 7. In the book of Joshua and in the book of Revelation, there are 3 sets of 7. Joshua led the Hebrews around the walls of Jericho 7 times while 7 priests blew 7 trumpets before the walls of security collapsed in judgment. This was a judgment sign, this Super Bowl in 2019. How this was a judgment sign and all of the things in this Super Bowl was explained in other videos. I haven't even begun to scratch the surface on explaining the amazing, truly mind-boggling connections between these two Super Bowls, Super Bowl III and Super Bowl 53. I'm just laying out how there were these 50 years connections between the last two Super Bowls. Both of these last two Super Bowls, by the way, are in good detail explained in part 19 of this video series that I recommended earlier. All right, now God has confirmed the prophetic significance of this 50th Super Bowl of the modern era, as you can see in this diagram, with Super Bowl 5 and Super Bowl 25, because this 50 years is divided into 20 and 30 years. And 20 years is extremely prophetic in the Bible. It symbolizes a complete or perfect period of time or a perfect period of waiting. For 20 years, Jacob waited to get possession of his wives and property. For 20 years, the children of Israel waited to be freed by Jabin, king of Canaan, who oppressed them. And the Ark of the Covenant waited in Kiriath Jearim before going on to Jerusalem for 20 years. And Solomon spent a total of 20 years building the house of God and the buildings for his home. There have been many instances in God's big picture of signs, patterns, and connections that demonstrate the significance prophetically of 20 years, including, for example, the 7.0 earthquake in Joshua Tree, California. Exactly 20 biblical years after this was the prophetic earthquake on July 4th, 2019, that the media in California, that the mainstream media news reported as being the strongest earthquake in California in 20 years. That was the headline. And in fact, what they didn't realize is that it was exactly 20 biblical years. And I explained the prophetic significance of this 2019 earthquake and this 20 years connection in other videos. A biblical year is 360 days, 12 months of 30 days. Up until a certain point in history, I forget when exactly, which century, BC, all ancient cultures used 360-day calendar years. They divided the stars into 12 zodiacs with 30 degrees each. Also, there is the 20 years in between the Indian Ocean tsunami that killed 220,000 people and the end of the age and the first day of the Messianic age on December 26, 2024. God demonstrated this and confirmed this with the 20-year period in between the tsunami in Papua New Guinea that killed 2,200 people and the mini tsunami on Major and Minor Island, which is explained in another video that I made in July of 2019, which I plan to repost because it is still just as valid as it was back then, and it proves that the second coming is in 2024 and therefore begins on 1,260 days before the Day of Atonement in 2024 on May 1st, 2021. 30 years is also extremely prophetic in the Bible, and also God uses 30 years in his big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, because 30 years symbolizes a king and also Antichrist king. David and Joseph became kings at the age of 30 years old. For example, 30 years exactly before the beginning of the end times period on May 1st, 2021, and the beginning of the rule of the Antichrist King was May 1st, 1991, and Nolan Ryan's 7th career no-hitter at the age of 44, whose name in Gaelic Irish means noble king, and Nolan Ryan is the strikeout king. That's also explained in better detail in the other videos. But again, this is hinting at the Antichrist King, and that is ultimately, the main theme, one of the main themes of God's big picture of signs, patterns, and connections is that his big picture of signs, patterns, and connections is all about revealing the identities of the two antichrists, as well as the main theme being judgment warning for the American evangelical church, which is explained in other videos. But incidentally, that's why this Nolan Ryan strikeout at the age of 44, player number 34, both numbers that God uses to point to and symbolize Barack Obama. That's why this game occurred in Dallas, Texas. According to the media, Dallas is the capital of evangelicalism, and God has used the city of Dallas in countless other signs to symbolize the American evangelical church. And that's why the last player in this game was player number 12. The number 12 symbolizes the church. And that's why this player struck out with the last strike of the game, striking out swinging on his knee, which symbolizes kneeling to Satan, which, by the way, is why the kneeling movement in the cultural Marxist protests was kneeling for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, the time that Flight 11 flew into the North Tower at 8:46 a.m. Also, Pentecost symbolizes the church, and Pentecost means 50th, and so the number 50 symbolizes the church, and that's why the number 50 is one of the three most important numbers God uses profusely in his end times big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, and that's why the 50 years connections that have been mentioned so far, and that's also why the exact 50 weeks in between the two double doinks that I mentioned earlier. 50 weeks is especially prophetic and symbolizes the church because Pentecost is also known as the Feast of Weeks. All right, and so that's why we see here in this diagram the prophetic significance of this 50th Super Bowl of the modern era being divided with 20 and 30 years. Now, it just so happens that 30 years prior to this upcoming Super Bowl 55 was Super Bowl 25. And it was the Buffalo Bills' first Super Bowl, their first Super Bowl of a record 4 Super Bowls in a row. God uses records to confirm his signs. Number 4 also is hinting at the 44th president, but this will be explained. 1 second witness to the relevance of the 4 record Super Bowl appearances in a row for the Buffalo Bills. No other team has done that. That's why it's a record. Is the fact that this game came down to the last kick. It was all about this kick, as I will explain. And after the kick, there was 4 seconds left in the game. Super Bowl 5 also came down to the last play of the game, a field goal kick, and it also was kicked with 4 seconds left in the game. That's a third witness to the relevance of the number 4 and the 4 record Super Bowls in a row. Given this confirmation for Barack Obama being associated with this Super Bowl, Super Bowl 25, what this is in fact pointing to is how Barack Obama will become president again through the 25th Amendment. One of countless examples in his big picture of signs, patterns, and connections that's demonstrating the 25th Amendment and Barack Obama, which has been explained in other videos, including that multiple part video which you need to watch. And so that's actually quite important here, because Super Bowl 25, pointing to the 25th Amendment, is 30 years before this upcoming Super Bowl. And again, 30 years symbolizes king, which is also a president, which is also the Antichrist. So the Barack Obama becomes president king again through the 25th Amendment. It's solid confirmation of this, in fact. One thing to add here is that the Bills kicker missed the field goal. And so this was really the only Super Bowl of the 4 Super Bowls in which the Bills had a chance to win the game. The other 3 Super Bowls were blowouts. And the Bills are actually famous for having this record 4 Super Bowl appearances in a row, but they are also famous for it being believed that they weren't really supposed to be there. Because during those years, the AFC conference was so much weaker than the NFC. And so there was a period of, I forget how many years, in which the AFC didn't win a Super Bowl. And so, in other words, their competition getting into the Super Bowl wasn't that high caliber as it was in the NFC. But anyway, the point is that this Super Bowl of the 4 Super Bowls was really the important one for the Bills, because it came down to the last play of the game with the kick, the field goal, and it just missed the upright. It was a 47-yard field goal, 4 seconds left after the kick, and it just missed, and the Bills, as a result, never won a Super Bowl. They went 4 times. The big sad story, especially for my Bills fans, including my father and my brother, is that they never won a Super Bowl even though they went 4 times. And so, yeah, that's the importance. That's in other words, this is the Bills Super Bowl, if you will. Okay? All right. Now, this particular Super Bowl was played between the Buffalo Bills and the New York Giants, the 2 teams from New York State. New York State is the 11th state to join the Union. Jesus coined the phrase the 11th hour, which referred to the last hour of daylight before darkness. In English, the 11th hour is an idiom that means last chance, time is running out. On 9/11, it was Flight 11 with a crew of 11 people. The second plane had a crew of 9 people that flew into the Twin Towers that looked like a giant 11 in New York State, the 11th state to join the Union. 9/11 was the big 11th hour last chance, time is running out to repent sign. And so that's the prophetic significance here, this massive significance of this 30 years connection between Super Bowl 25 and this upcoming Super Bowl 55. In other words, this 30 years connection between these 2 Bills Super Bowls will be pointing directly at the number 11 and the 11th hour, last chance, time is running out. What confirms this is that 50 years before this Super Bowl 55, this 50th Super Bowl of the modern era, in Super Bowl V was known as the Blooper Bowl or Blunder Bowl because it had a record 11 turnovers. I'll repeat that. This game is known for its turnovers, and it was a record 11. And God uses all-time records to confirm his signs. And so, my friends, here with Super Bowl 55, we connect with these 2 Super Bowls, Super Bowl 25 and Super Bowl 5, and it connects with the number 11. Not only that, but Super Bowl 25 is known for this final kick that the Bills kicked and missed, and therefore lost the game, and that player is number 11. And so the 2 teams from the 11th state played, and it came down to the last kick by player number 11, 30 years before the Bills will win the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 55. And Super Bowl 55, the 50th Super Bowl, is 50 years after the Super Bowl, which was all about the 11 turnovers, the record 11 turnovers. So this Super Bowl 55 on February 7th, the 50th Super Bowl of the modern era, will be 50 years after the Super Bowl that is known for its 11 turnovers, and it will be 30 years after the game between the 2 teams from the 11th state that came down to the last kick of the game by player number 11. This upcoming Super Bowl will also be exactly 117 weeks after player number 1 hit the upright goalpost 4 times in one game, on the date 11/11, which is 4 ones. And the first, the second, and third kicks were kicked with the 11 minutes remaining in the first, second, and third quarters. This upcoming Super Bowl will also be exactly 109 weeks after this same kicker kicked the infamous double doink in the prophetic playoff game. Barack Obama was the senator from Illinois for the 109th Congress and will return as the 47th president in the 117th Congress. And so all of this connects these prophetic kicks by the field goal kickers. And it is connecting with the number 11. And Super Bowl 25 came down to the field goal kick by player number 11, who missed the field goal and lost the game for the Buffalo Bills. This field goal attempt was from the 47-yard line. This missed field goal from the 47-yard line is connecting with the missed field goal in the infamous double doink, which is confirmation that Barack Obama's double doink will be when he returns as the 47th president in the 117th Congress. The Blunder Bowl, or the Blooper Bowl, with the 11 turnovers, some say, including the coaches, was a result of not necessarily a lot of mistakes, although it's debatable, but also it was a result of it being a very hard-hitting, violent game. That in itself symbolizes the end times. In other words, this game is also known for being a violent game. And so we are talking about violence that's coming. This Super Bowl was also the only Super Bowl in which the MVP player was a player on the losing team. The losing team was Dallas. And God has used the city Dallas in so many different ways to communicate judgment warning on the American evangelical church. According to the media, Dallas is the capital of evangelicalism, and this is why God uses the city Dallas symbolically for this reason. And God pointed to Dallas in this Super Bowl through this only one MVP on the losing team. In other words, 50 years after this is confirmation of the beginning of judgment, which Peter said begins with the church. And God reproves whom he loves, and God is seriously displeased with the American evangelical church specifically. And I emphasize that because, well, this is what God's big picture of signs and patterns is communicating without a doubt. And this prediction will prove this, by the way, as well as the other predictions. And this is the purpose of this prediction. The purpose of this prediction is, in fact, to prove this very conclusion, that God is demonstrating the main theme of God's big picture of signs, patterns, and connections is judgment warning specifically for the American evangelical church of Laodicea that Jesus said he wants to vomit out of his mouth for its Nicolaitan doctrine and works, which is Calvinism, free grace, also known as easy believism and properly known as antinomianism, and its offspring doctrines such as no lordship salvation, once saved, always saved, all Christians will be raptured, the myth of imputed righteousness, our righteousness is as filthy rags, one verse that's taken out of context, misunderstood, and flatly contradicts many other passages in the Bible, and what could be called happy Christianity or practical Christianity, where coming to Jesus is seen more as a life improvement rather than for a need for a savior. And also God has demonstrated judgment warning for the Pentecostal and charismatic church or movement through his signs, which is explained in that multiple part video I just mentioned. You need to watch the videos that I link to in the description box below on other channels. This Super Bowl was tied at 13-13, which is Antichrist symbolism. The Dallas Cowboys ended up with 13 points. Well, 13, by the way, symbolizes the Antichrist because Nimrod, a type for the Antichrist, was the 13th generation from Ham. Haman, another type for the Antichrist, persecuted the Jews on the 2 13th days of the months. And the two antichrists are described in the 13th chapter of the book of Revelation. And Barack Obama served the 13th district of the state of Illinois when he was a state senator. It was 13-13 until the score was finally 16-13 with the final field goal kicked with 4 seconds left in the game, hinting at the other field goal with 4 seconds left in the game in the first of the record 4 Super Bowls in a row for the Bills, which hints at Barack Obama, the 44th president that will persecute the American evangelical church. And again, I emphasize evangelical church because there will be many evangelicals that will say, well, if God's demonstrating any kind of judgment on the church, it must be therefore for the, quote, liberal, quote, church. In other words, the Episcopalian or Catholic church or whatever. However, evangelicals are just as deceived as Jehovah's Witnesses and liberal churches and Catholics. They are just deceived in their own unique way. Again, you need to watch the videos in the description box below. And this prediction proves that, by the way. It would not be prudent to not learn what I'm talking about if this prediction comes to pass. Another thing too, is that Jesus said he hates this Nicolaitan doctrine, and he is coming to make war with those with this doctrine with the sword of his mouth. And so that's why it would not be prudent to continue on as if this prediction didn't come to pass, or that I was able to make this prediction, but I couldn't possibly be right about theology or what God is communicating about theology through his big picture of signs, patterns, and connections. All right, so the information that you just watched, I made that in January of 2021, before Super Bowl 55. And as you can see at that time, I was already beginning to appreciate that God was pointing to these Super Bowls, Super Bowl 55 and Super Bowl 56, as we now know, with all of this kicker symbolism and prophetic kicker signs. Because ultimately, again, of course, we are predicting here there will be a double doink in this upcoming Super Bowl. Now, what happened in Super Bowl 55 is God did, in fact, like I expected, point to the kicker of the Chiefs. And I was also specifically after January, or after the video that you just watched, also pointing to specifically the kicker for the Chiefs. Because prior to that, I didn't know that the Chiefs would be in the Super Bowl. But once that came to be known, it was quite easy to realize, oh, well, hold on a second. Of course, he's pointing to this kicker for the Chiefs, Harrison Butker, right? Because he had already used this same kicker for double doinks. And that's been explained in the other parts to this video series, right? And so, yes, God, as I explained, did use a kicker, as I predicted would be the case before Super Bowl 55. In Super Bowl 55, it was the Chiefs kicker, Harrison Butker, that kicked 3 field goals, 1 in each of the first 3 quarters, and his number is 7, which gave us a 3 sets of 7. And again, there was a 50 years connection in that, and so it was one of 3 Super Bowls in a row with 3 sets of 7 symbolism that also contained a 50 years connection. It was the Chiefs' first Super Bowl in literally 50 years. And also that kicker kicked a total of 9 points, which, as I explained, also paired with the 17 and 31. But anyway, the point being is that he did in fact point to the kicker in that game, which confirmed what I was saying before that Super Bowl, but it wasn't the end of the story. The end of the story involving these kicking signs will come in this Super Bowl with the upcoming predicted double doink. And again, the double doink presidency of Barack Obama will be the result of the death of Kamala Harris in a plane crash. And then he will replace Kamala Harris as the vice president and then replace Joe Biden as the 47th president, which is the reason for the double doinks kicked by Harrison Butker, and why all of these kicks that were just explained pointed to the 3 sets of 7 that was kicked by Harrison Butker in the Super Bowl 55. What I'm also saying here is that the prophetic kicks that I just explained that occurred in Super Bowl 25 and Super Bowl 5. Both of these kicks deciding the result of the game, kicks made with 4 seconds remaining in the game, hinting at the 44th president, and that extremely prophetic kick at the end of Super Bowl 25 made by player number 11 in a game with the two teams from the 11th state. The kick made by player number 11 that was 47 yards, which pointed to the 47th president. The kick that was missed from the 47-yard line, this probably most famous field goal attempt missed kick in all of Super Bowl history, obviously. And so that kick by Scott Norwood, player number 11 for the Buffalo Bills, as I just explained, was pointing with 30 years to the Harrison Butker 3 sets of 7 kicks. And that in turn is also pointing to the double doink coming in this Super Bowl. In other words, what I'm saying is that the missed kick from the 47-yard line, this most famous kick, is pointing to this upcoming Super Bowl, which when the double doink is kicked, will be pointing to the double doink presidency and the 47th presidency for the 44th president. It's just amazing that these kicks from that long ago, from Super Bowl 25 and Super Bowl 5, are pointing to this upcoming Super Bowl. And also, as I explained earlier in this video series, God pairs the numbers, certain numbers together to confirm the signs and connections and provide us with second and third and multiple witnesses confirming matters. And as I just explained, God was pointing to Super Bowl 55 with these kicks and these games in Super Bowl 5 and 25, which involved the number 11. Again, it was the two teams from the 11th state, and the kicker that missed the field goal at the end of the game with 4 seconds left was player number 11. And in Super Bowl 5, it was the Blunder Bowl, the Blooper Bowl, which was the record number of turnovers, which was 11. And so we had this number 11 pointing to the Super Bowl 55, and that was all about the kicker, Harrison Butker, the 3 sets of 7, who kicked a total of 9 points, which confirms the signs and connections. It pairs with the 11 there. The 11s are pointing to that Super Bowl in which we get the number 9 from the kicker. And this gives us 9/11 symbolism, and on 9/11 it was Flight 11 with a crew of 11 people that flew into the Twin Towers. It looked like a giant 11 in New York State, the 11th state to join the Union, because Jesus coined the phrase the 11th hour, which referred to the last hour of daylight before darkness, and in English is an idiom that means last chance, time is running out, as in last chance, time is running out for the nation of America to repent and turn back to God before judgment destruction. The first Super Bowl the Patriots were in were against the '85 Bears in Super Bowl 20. And this brings us to one of the most amazing signs of all, which is the '85 Bears. Barack Obama hosted the '85 Bears at the White House on October 7th, a date God uses to symbolize the Day of Atonement, which symbolizes Judgment Day. In the Hebrew calendar and in calendars outside the U.S., the date is written in reverse. The 10th day of the 7th month is written as 10/7, hence October 7th. And why God has used the date 10/7 and why God used this date 10/7 in 2011 when Obama, the GOAT, Antichrist, hosted the '85 Bears at the White House and said that this team was the greatest of all time, the GOAT, the team that won the Super Bowl the year Obama moved to Chicago. Barack Obama visited the Pope for the first time, Pope Benedict, on July 10th, which is 7/10, the 10th day of the 7th month, which was also symbolizing the Day of Atonement, the day the two antichrists will be vanquished. The Day of Atonement is the day of the second coming of Lord Jesus Christ, when he will vanquish the two goats, the two antichrists. And although Pope Francis is the other goat, popes have always been antichrists, and Obama meeting Pope Benedict was symbolism of the two goats, and that's why they met on the 10th day of the 7th month in 2009. For the second time during Obama's presidency, lightning struck the Vatican on October 7th, 2016, which was also pointing to the two goat antichrists and the Day of Atonement. That day connected with 666 days to Barack Obama's birthday on August 4th, 2018, and the sign we received on that day is President Trump, God's trumpet that he uses to trumpet his signs, having a heated text exchange between the two goats, LeBron James and Michael Jordan. The debate in the basketball world is who is the GOAT, Michael Jordan or LeBron James, and in these tweets, President Trump hinted that Michael Jordan was the GOAT. This transpired on Barack Obama's birthday, the GOAT. That day, in turn, was another 666 days before another lightning sign. The day the two astronauts were launched in the Dragon capsule in the SpaceX 9 rocket that was delayed 4 days because of a lightning storm 17 minutes before the scheduled launch. The 17 minutes delay and the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket is another pairing of 9 and 17, similar to the 17 minutes rain delay after the 9 innings in the 2016 Chicago-Cleveland World Series. Again, God pairs these numbers together because it points to Genesis 9:17 and God's sign regarding judgment, the rainbow. And Barack Obama was president from 2009 until 2017 and arrived in Washington as the senator in the 109th Congress and will return to Washington in the 117th Congress. Dragon is Antichrist symbolism in the book of Revelation, and on this day that the two astronauts symbolizing the two Antichrists were launched in the Dragon capsule, Vice President Mike Pence tweeted how this day was 3.5 years in the making. In the Bible, it is said that the Dragon Antichrist will rule for 3.5 years. Pence goes with Trump to make Trump Pence, as in trumpets, God's trumpet, that he uses to confirm his signs. The day the two astronauts splashed down in the Dragon capsule in the ocean, which symbolized Archangel Michael throwing Satan down from heaven to earth, as described in Revelation chapter 12, that day was 66 days before 10/7, October 7th, in 2020, and the day 200,000 people lost power due to a lightning storm over Boston. God uses the city of Boston to symbolize America and his hand on American history and the spiritual founding of America, and he also uses the Charles River to point to the Puritans that arrived with John Winthrop's flotilla up the Charles River, and that's why this lightning storm was over the Charles River. That day was also the prophetic vice presidential candidate debate between Mike Pence and Kamala Harris. In the debate, a black fly landed on Pence's white hair for 2 minutes. This was pointing to the Lord of the Flies, Barack Obama. And that is explained in, I believe, video number 7 or 8 in this video series. I won't explain it again here, but it is amazing. This date, 10/7 in 2020, was also Day of Atonement symbolism. On this date that symbolized the Day of Atonement, we received another sign, which was how the governor of Florida gave permission to the Miami Dolphins to open up their stadium to a full capacity crowd. The Dolphins organization turned this down and said that they would stick with the CDC guidelines and have a maximum capacity of 13,000 people in the stadium. At this time, the Dolphins' record on the season was 1-3, which hinted at the number 13. Which confirmed the 13,000 people in the stadium sign, which was a massive prophetic sign. And that's because this sign of 13,000 in the stadium at the time the Dolphins were 1-3 was exactly 9 years 9 years connections are extremely prophetic in God's big picture of signs. After 10-7 in 2011, a 9 years connection from 2011 is a pairing of 9 and 11, hinting at 9/11, when Barack Obama hosted the Chicago Bears at the White House, when he said that this team was the greatest of all time, which is a debate because there is a team that had an undefeated season. They won 17 games. They didn't lose a single game in their season, and that was the Miami Dolphins. The '85 Bears lost one game in their season. The team which they happened to lose to was the Miami Dolphins. In fact, it was the same head coach, the winningest coach in NFL history, that coached the undefeated Dolphins and coached the Dolphins that were the only team to beat the '85 Bears. The week in the NFL schedule in which the Miami Dolphins beat the '85 Bears, the only team to beat the '85 Bears, was in week 13 of the NFL schedule. Their formidable defense, the 46 defense, lost to the Miami Dolphins because they couldn't counter the Hall of Fame quarterback Dan Marino and his unique quick pass offense, player number 13. To paraphrase one Chicago Bears player about this game, nothing was going their way in this game. In other words, God had his hand on this game, and God designed it that player number 13 in week 13 would beat the Chicago Bears. This was a Monday Night Football game, which means it was a nationally televised game, which confirms that this is a sign, because God typically has these prophetic signs in nationally televised games. It just so happens that I know all of this because as a kid, I was a Miami Dolphins fan. I watched this game, and this was in the early days of VCRs, and it was the only game that I ever recorded. I happened to record this very extremely prophetic football game that only a few months ago I realized was so prophetic. This game that Dan Marino, player number 13, beat the Bears in week 13 was 13 years after the undefeated Miami Dolphins season, which ended in the Super Bowl in which the MVP was player number 13. That this player was the MVP was highly unusual because his position on the field is safety. And I'm not sure, but it could very well be that this was the only safety in all of Super Bowl history to win the MVP. But it could very well be that this safety position is hinting at the safety of those in Christ from the Antichrist. Because all of this number 13 symbolism is Antichrist symbolism. The number 13 symbolizes the Antichrist. Nimrod, a type for the Antichrist, was the 13th generation from Ham. Haman, another type for the Antichrist, persecuted the Jews on the 2 13th days of the months. And the two Antichrists are described in the book of Revelation in chapter 13. That's why 13 years after this MVP that was player number 13, Dan Marino, player number 13, beat the '85 Bears in week number 13, the only team to have beaten the Bears. Thus why the Bears are arguably the greatest of all time and not for certain because there is an undefeated team, which happened to be the same team that beat the '85 Bears, which Barack Obama subsequently hosted at the White House after he hosted the '85 Bears, because it wasn't fair that this undefeated team didn't get hosted at the White House as well. And because of the controversy over Barack Obama's remark that the '85 Bears were the GOAT, the greatest of all time. When the Dolphins visited him at the White House, he made a joke about this, telling them that they needed to take what he said with a grain of salt, because he is from Chicago. This 1972 Miami Dolphins team went undefeated. They won 17 games and lost 0 games. The only team to ever go undefeated. This Miami Dolphins team is forever associated with the number 17. And the Obama White House YouTube channel, which has videos for all of these championship teams' visits to the White House, is exactly 9 minutes and 0 seconds long. I am unaware of any other video on the Obama White House channel that is an exact number of minutes long, and this is exactly 9 minutes long, and it's about the undefeated 17 Miami Dolphins. That's a pairing of 9 and 17, which I will explain in a minute why that is significant. It's like the 17 minutes rain delay after the 9 innings in the 2016 World Series, which I mentioned earlier. And why Obama was president from 2009 until 2017 and arrived in Washington in the 109th Congress and will return as the president in the 117th Congress. It all points to Genesis 9:17, which describes God's sign regarding judgment, the rainbow. It's the last verse in the Noah's flood judgment account. Player number 13, Dan Marino, in week number 13, beat the 85 Bears, ruining the Bears' ambition for an undefeated season 13 years after the undefeated Dolphins won the Super Bowl with MVP player number 13. And the year that these undefeated Dolphins visited Barack Obama at the White House was in the year 2013. So returning back to the 85 Bears that visited Obama at the White House on 10/7 in 2011. Again, this was exactly 9 years before 10/7 in 2020, and the news story about the Dolphins organization turning down the permission to open their stadium and remain with a capacity of 13,000 people in their stadium at the time that the Dolphins' record was 1-3, which hinted at the number 13. The date the 85 Bears visited Obama at the White House was October 7th, 10/7, a date that symbolizes the Day of Atonement, which is the 10th day of the 7th month in the Hebrew calendar. This date was the actual Day of Atonement in 2011. And so, in other words, it wasn't only symbolism for the Day of Atonement, but in the Hebrew calendar that year, it was also the actual Day of Atonement. October 7th in 2011 was the Day of Atonement in 2011 in the Hebrew calendar. And here, my friends, is where it all comes together. Because the reason for all of this 13 symbolism associated with the 85 Bears that I just went through, the 85 Bears that were 13 years after the undefeated Dolphins, with their MVP player number 13, the 85 Bears that were beaten by player number 13 in week number 13, the only game that they lost in the season to the Dolphins. 9 years after the Day of Atonement in 2011, when they visited the White House, was 10/7 in 2020. And the sign that was the 13,000 people in the stadium capacity, and the Dolphins at a record of 1-3, which hinted at 13. On the day of the lightning over the Charles River in Boston, that knocked out the power for 200,000 people. And Barack Obama's name means lightning from heaven. And on the day of the fly on Pence's hair for 2 minutes, which pointed to Barack Obama as the Lord of the Flies, which in the Bible is Antichrist symbolism. And in the 85 Bears, we have the number 85, and 8 plus 5 is 13. The reason for all of this 13 symbolism for the 85 Bears is because exactly 13 years after they visited Barack Obama at the White House on the Day of Atonement will be the Day of Atonement in 2024, the day of Lord Jesus Christ's second coming, and the day that the two antichrists, the two goats, will be vanquished by the presence of Lord Jesus Christ. Just like Barack Obama is tied to the debate between the two GOATs of basketball through their jersey numbers being 23, Barack Obama got himself into the middle of the debate between the two greatest of all-time football teams, the 85 Chicago Bears and the 72 Miami Dolphins. And let's not forget that Barack Obama arrived in Chicago in 1985, which began the 30-year cycle of all of the Chicago sports teams breaking their epic long droughts of never winning a championship. And 30 years symbolizes a king, which hints at the Antichrist king, Barack Obama. And there you have it. This is why God demonstrated all of this to point to the Day of Atonement in 2024. This is why Tom Brady, the GOAT, greatest of all time, will win 7 Super Bowls out of 10 Super Bowls, which will hint at the 10th day of the 7th month, the Day of Atonement, and the day that the GOATs will be vanquished by the return of Lord Jesus Christ. The climax to God's use of Tom Brady in his true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections. There was a mystery that I had always wanted to know the answer to, and this is the mention of 1,335 days at the very end of the book of Daniel, the extremely prophetic book of Daniel, in Daniel chapter 12. In the ESV, the title of this chapter is The Time of the End. The angel tells Daniel, "Go your way, Daniel, for the words are shut up and sealed until the time of the end," which I figure, since now is the time of the end, this knowledge is unsealed. It goes on to say, "Many shall purify themselves and make themselves white and be refined. But the wicked shall act wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand. But those who are wise shall understand." And so I assume this means that the wise will understand the meaning of, for example, what he is about to say regarding the 1,335 days. It goes on to say, "And from that time that the regular burnt offering is taken away and the abomination that makes desolate is set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Blessed is he who waits and arrives at the 1,335 days. But go your way till the end, and you shall rest and shall stand in your allotted place at the end of the days." This last verse is referring to the resurrection, and it is in clear context with 1,335 days. I won't explain it in this video. It's been explained in other videos. And by the way, it is explained in video number 2 in the playlist titled Most Astounding Information Ever, which I made in 2017. And especially if you are new to Christianity, you should really watch this video. Or rather, I should say you need to watch this video series. But in Bible prophecy, there is what is known as the day for a year prophecy rule. There are prophecies in which God says a day symbolizes a year. And so this 1,335 days, I'm sure, has a dual fulfillment in that it symbolizes 1,335 years as well as 1,335 days that lead up to the end. It is mentioned in context of the abomination that causes desolation, as I just read. Arguably, a symbolic abomination is the Dome of the Rock mosque, the third holiest site in Islam, that sits directly on top of the ruins of the ancient Jewish temple, which is what is preventing the Jews from rebuilding the temple, which will be rebuilt in the end times, and there will be a temple there for Lord Jesus Christ to dwell in the 1,000 years messianic age of peace. That Dome of the Rock mosque, which, by the way, is the iconic building in the photos of Jerusalem. It's the gold dome. The Dome of the Rock began to be constructed in the Islamic year that corresponds with the year 685 and 686 AD. In other words, 685 to 86 is the year that the Dome of the Rock began to be constructed. If we add 1,300 years to this year, we get the year 1986, the year the Chicago Bears won the Super Bowl, the '85 Bears, the year that Barack Obama moved to Chicago. The number 1,300 symbolizes the Antichrist. The number 13 symbolizes the Antichrist, and we have this 1,300 years connection. Furthermore, again, the sign we received on 10/7/2020 was the 13,000 people capacity at the Miami Dolphins Stadium. The 1,300th word in the Hebrew Old Testament, H1300 in Strong's Concordance, is the word Barak, which means lightning. Barack Obama's name in Hebrew means lightning from heaven. Barak, lightning, O, from, Bama, the high places of idolatrous worship, the heights, heaven. In the Gospel of Luke, Jesus said he saw Satan falling like lightning from heaven. In other words, we don't really need this video to know that Barack Obama is the Antichrist. Jesus revealed this in his first coming. It is very clear. Otherwise, Jesus didn't know what he was saying, or he knew that there would be a famous president named Barack Obama, but said what he said anyway, knowing that it would be confusing. In other words, there is no doubt that Barack Obama is the Antichrist, and Jesus said so. But this is why lightning symbolizes Barack Obama. And as I said, on this day of this 13,000 people's capacity in the Miami Dolphins Stadium, on the day of the Lord of the Flies sign with the fly on Pence's hair, was the day of the 200,000 people that lost due to the lightning storm over Boston. That was 66 days after the 2 astronauts splashed down in the Dragon capsule, and the Dragon capsule was launched after a delay 17 minutes before its scheduled launch due to a lightning storm, and that was 666 days after Trump tweeted the 2 GOATs, Michael Jordan and LeBron James, and that in turn was 666 days after 10/7 in 2016 when lightning hit the Vatican for the second time. The first time it hit the Vatican twice in that day, and that was just hours after Pope Benedict resigned as the Pope. And again, Barack Obama visited the Pope on a date that symbolizes the Day of Atonement on July 10th, 2009. A quick tangent here that ties into this Super Bowl and confirms that Barack Obama is associated with lightning, and therefore confirms the relevance of this 1,300 number and the 1,300 years from the day that the Dome of the Rock began to be constructed. If we look at this diagram here, this Super Bowl, when Tampa Bay will win the Super Bowl, will be exactly 19 weeks after the Tampa Bay Lightning hockey team won the Stanley Cup. They won the series 4-2, which hints at the number 42, which is Antichrist symbolism. They beat the Dallas Stars, which is another judgment warning on the American Evangelical Church. God uses the city Dallas to symbolize the American Evangelical Church. Furthermore, Tom Brady's number is number 12, which symbolizes the church. And in this Super Bowl, he will beat the Kansas City Chiefs, which, as I explained, is symbolizing Pentecost and the church. In other words, this Super Bowl will be the last chance, time is running out, to repent for the American Evangelical Church of Laodicea, which Jesus said he wants to vomit out of his mouth for it being lukewarm, which is the result of its Nicolaitan doctrine and works, which I explained in this video. The number 19 symbolizes God's perfect judgment. The number 10 symbolizes perfect order, and the number 9 symbolizes judgment, hence number 19, perfect judgment. Jerusalem was destroyed 19 years after it was first sieged by the Babylonians, hence why 19 years after 9/11, America will be judged, and why after 9/11 Tom Brady began his career and won the Super Bowl right after 9/11, and we have 19 years between Tom Brady's first Super Bowl and this upcoming last Super Bowl. Okay, so again, 19 weeks back from when Tampa Bay will win this Super Bowl was the day the Tampa Bay Lightning won the Stanley Cup, which was 66 days after lightning hit the One World Tower, which points to the Twin Towers and 9/11, which is hinting at Barack Obama becoming the Antichrist of the world after he becomes president and takes over the UN. The day the Tampa Bay Lightning won the Stanley Cup was exactly 900 weeks after the company Tesla was founded. 900 symbolizes the number 9, which symbolizes judgment. And God has been using Tesla in his big picture of signs to symbolize electricity and lightning. Nikola Tesla was famous for his electricity experiments and the invention of the Tesla coils and his lightning experiments. And Tesla made its all-time peak on January 25th at 900 points. And exactly 911 weeks after Tesla was founded on July 1st, 2003, was the day of the 4.4 magnitude earthquake on the northwest flank of Mount Mauna Kea in Hawaii, the highest point in Hawaii. The 4.4 hints at Barack Obama, the 44th president, who grew up in Hawaii, and this earthquake was 16 miles deep on the northwest flank of this mountain, Mauna Kea. 16 is 4 times 4. And the northwest flank is very interesting because in the book of Daniel chapter 8, it says that the Antichrist will come from the northwest. It just so happens that directly northwest of Jerusalem is Rome, and Barack Obama will get his power from the first beast, Pope Francis. But again, Barack Obama's name means lightning and heights. That's why this earthquake was on the highest point in Hawaii, where Barack Obama is from. And so it is truly amazing that from the day that Tesla was founded, we have these two connections that mean lightning from heaven. Barack Obama's name. Lightning, Barack, the heights, Bama, which again in Isaiah chapter 14 is symbolism for heaven. Lucifer was thrown from the heights, or fell from the heights, which is a metaphor for his fall from heaven. And again, the word Barak is the 1300th word, and that's why we are confirming this relevance of the 1300 years connection. Anyway, what confirms this? This 1300 years from the Dome of the Rock to the year of the Chicago Bears Super Bowl in 1986. And by the way, the Dome of the Rock, again, was 685 to 686. And it was the 85 Bears that won the Super Bowl in 1986. That in itself is a match. But what confirms this is that Super Bowl 20 in 1986 was the last year that the Chicago Bears cheerleader squad existed. After that year, the Chicago Bears organization discontinued having cheerleaders at their games. The Chicago Bears have not won the Super Bowl since 1986, and many Chicago Bears fans attribute this to what is called the curse of the Honey Bears. The Honey Bears was the name of the Chicago Bears cheerleading squad. The supposed curse is that because there is no longer a Honey Bears cheerleading squad, this is the reason why the Chicago Bears have been, for the most part, losers over the years and haven't won a Super Bowl since 1986, the last game that the Honey Bears cheerleaded in. This curse of the Honey Bears is hinting at 2 Kings chapter 2, when the prophet Elisha cursed in the name of the Lord the boys, and then, quote, 2 she-bears came out of the woods and tore 42 of the bears, quote. There are no words. First of all, it is she-bears. The Bible isn't even describing bears, it's she-bears. And we're talking about the curse of the honey bears, the female cheerleaders. Second of all, the bears tore 42 boys. 42 is Antichrist symbolism. which confirms the 1300 years connection between the Dome of the Rock and the Honey Bears, which is ultimately pointing to the Antichrist, Barack Obama, who moved to Chicago in the year of the 85 Bears. We are also talking about a curse. The prophet Elisha cursed in the name of the Lord the boys, and then the two she-bears tore up 42 boys. And we're talking about the curse of the honey bears. It's just amazing. That is 100% confirmation of adding the 1300 years. And again, 1300 is the word lightning, which points to Barack Obama as well. And let's not forget all of the number 13 connections to the 85 bears that have been explained. The thing is also is that 2 Kings chapter 2 is the chapter. It is a foreshadow, a prophetic type, a prophetic example of the rapture. The prophet Elijah parted and then crossed the Jordan River and then was taken up to heaven. He just vanished in front of the prophet Elisha's eyes. The prophet Elijah didn't die. He is one of two men in the Bible that didn't die and were taken up to heaven, which are precedents, types for the rapture, when the faithful followers of Jesus will be taken up to heaven at the beginning of the end times tribulation period, when those saints that are already asleep will be resurrected. The number 50 occurs twice in this chapter as well. Twice it is mentioned 50 men. The number 50 symbolizes the church. And so this is another hint that this is actually a hint at the resurrection rapture. If that's the case, if we have a solid confirmation of adding 1300 years from the Dome of the Rock, which symbolizes the abomination that causes desolation, and we have the 1,335 years from Daniel chapter 12, that's in context of the resurrection, and in context of the abomination that causes desolation, for which the Dome of the Rock Mosque is a symbol of, if we add 1,335 years to the Dome of the Rock in 686, we get 2022, the year of the resurrection and the rapture. In the Hebrew calendar, the new year begins in late September, early October every year. And October 686 AD was the year 4447 in the Hebrew calendar, which incidentally hints at the 44th and 47th presidencies. And if we add 1,335 years to the Hebrew year 4,447, we get the Hebrew year 5,782, which began on September 7th, 2021, and will end on September 26th, 2022, the Feast of Trumpets in the Hebrew calendar, which will be the day of the resurrection rapture event. Blessed is he who waits and arrives at the 1,335 days. But go your way till the end, and you shall rest and shall stand in your allotted place at the end of the days. Daniel 12, verse 12. I'm at a loss for words on how to conclude this and summarize this. As we can see here, God has revealed the year of the resurrection through Daniel 12, verse 12, and through all that I just explained, through using the 85 Chicago Bears that visited Obama at the White House, the 85 Bears that were the champions of the 85 season, the year that Obama moved to Chicago. And they visited him on the Day of Atonement in 2011, exactly 13 years before the Day of Atonement in 2024. And I think I might have forgotten to mention that the 85 Bears began a 30-year cycle in which all of the major sports franchise teams in Chicago won their championships. And prior to each of these teams winning their championships in this 30-year cycle, each of these teams had suffered long, epic droughts, sports curses, each one of them, culminating with the curse of the Billy Goat broken by the Chicago Cubs in 2016. And the Chicago Cubs visited Obama at the White House 4 days before he left office and presented him jersey number 44. And this jersey number 44 was presented to the 44th president, coincidentally, by their star player who happened to wear 44, jersey number 44, Anthony Rizzo, who made the prophetic final out of the World Series. God uses final outs as prophetic signs. This player 44 made the prophetic final out, finally breaking the curse of the Billy Goat for the Chicago Cubs, the goat on the Day of Atonement, Antichrist symbolism. Chicago, the city Obama, the Antichrist is from. And player 44 made this prophetic final out from a throw from the third baseman, another star player, player 17. This player 17 and player 44, Bryant and Rizzo, throughout this season were paired together in the media and called the home run factory or something to that effect, I forget. But the point is that the media had associated these two players together all season long as being the, image of the Chicago Cubs that year. And lo and behold, the prophetic final out was made between these two players. That's the point I'm trying to make here. And when the Cubs visited Barack Obama at the White House, he mentioned this Brizzo souvenir company, a combination of the name Bryant and Rizzo, the Brizzo souvenir company, referring to the baseballs they would hit into the stands for the fans to have as souvenirs. And Obama's mention of the Brizzo souvenir factory confirmed the prophetic significance of the pairing of these two together, and therefore the final out, the prophetic final out of the breaking of the curse of the Billy Goat with this ball thrown from player 17 to 44. And 17 symbolizes the Day of Atonement. And this final out in this game was made after the famous 17 minutes rain delay after the score was tied after 9 innings in the game 7. Player 44, 4 days before Obama left office, gave him jersey number 4, completing the 30-year cycle of Chicago sports teams that began when Barack Obama entered politics after he moved to Chicago and culminated with the end of his presidency, at least the first presidency. And in the Bible, 30 years symbolizes a king. And this is the thing. This is the key. This is huge. 30 years in the Bible symbolizes a king because David and Joseph were made kings at the age of 30 years old. And this is symbolizing or revealing the identity of the Antichrist king that will be vanquished from the Temple Mount in Jerusalem on the Day of Atonement in 2024. And through adding 1,300 years from the Dome of the Rock to the Curse of the Honey Bears, to confirm adding 1,335 years to the Dome of the Rock, to the year of the resurrection rapture. Okay, there's one more important thing to add regarding the 85 Bears, and that was their Super Bowl, Super Bowl 20. I'll just quickly go through the prophetic signs that occurred in this a very prophetic Super Bowl, Super Bowl 20. We should start with, first of all, 20 years, which is what Super Bowl 20 is, the 20th year of Super Bowls, is very prophetic in the Bible. It symbolizes a complete period, which would symbolize the complete period before judgment. But anyway, Super Bowl 20, first let's start with this player named Al Harris. He was one of the star players for the Chicago Bears, except he didn't play in 1985. He played for the Bears from 1979 until 1984. He skipped 1985 and then came back for 1986 and through to 1988. The reason why he didn't play for the 85 Bears, he missed that 1 year, is because of a contract dispute with the organization, which is really unfortunate for this player, Harris. And this is what he is known for now, because he missed the opportunity of playing with the arguably the GOAT, the greatest of all time football team of all time, and their magnificent season and Super Bowl win. What is confirmation of the prophetic significance of this is that this player is number 90. The number 90 symbolizes the number 9, which from the Bible symbolizes God's judgment and is the most important number in God's big picture of end times judgment warning signs. What confirms this is that he was the 9th pick overall in his draft. So he was the 9th pick and he was player number 90, which confirms each other and confirms the prophetic significance of this player Al Harris. And this, of course, is hinting at Kamala Harris, the door through which the Antichrist, Barack Obama, will come through to become president again. Her death in a plane crash on June 7th. What is even more confirmation of the prophetic significance of this player Al Harris that just happened to miss the one important year for the Bears because of a contract dispute, which, by the way, also symbolizes the constitutional dispute that will come through Barack Obama taking the White House again. He'll have to overcome the 22nd Amendment, which he will do, but it will no doubt go to the Supreme Court. And that's what's symbolized by the contract dispute. But this player was born in Maine. He was born in the 23rd state. And as has been explained a couple of times already in this video series, God pairs the numbers 9 and 23 together to confirm the signs and connections and to reveal the identity of the Antichrist. And so that's why this 23rd state pairs with the 9th pick and his jersey number 90. All right, now that is in turn confirmed by this exact 23 years connection from this Super Bowl. So again, this Super Bowl points to this player Al Harris and the number 9 and the 23rd state. And exactly 23 years after this Super Bowl was January 26th, 2009, which was just 6 days after Barack Obama's inauguration as the 44th president. And that alone is a confirmation because God pairs the numbers 23 and 44 together because the 44th president, the basketball president, wore jersey number 23. But also this eclipse, this day, January 26th, 2009, just after his inauguration, was the day of the prophetic eclipse that traversed the Indian Ocean, tracing out the path of the Indian Ocean tsunami, and only went over the country of Indonesia, and also went over the capital, Jakarta, where the 44th president grew up for 4 years. All right, now that eclipse was 2,300 days after the 2 suicide bombers in Indonesia. The 2 suicide bombers killed 202 people, and this was in the year 2002. And the day of this bombing was exactly 22 years before the Day of Atonement in 2024. Judgment Day, the day that the Antichrist will be vanquished from the Temple Mount. And so I just got finished explaining how the Chicago Bears reveal 13 years to the Day of Atonement and the vanquishing of the Antichrist. And so we have another confirmation of this. As I just said, the 2 suicide bombers killed 202 people in the year 2002, exactly 22 years before the Day of Atonement in 2024. And Barack Obama grew up in Indonesia, and the number 22 symbolizes the mark of the Antichrist. Because the mark of the Antichrist, the inverse of it, would have been the Tav mark recorded in Ezekiel chapter 9. The Tav is the last and 22nd letter in the Hebrew alphabet, and the mark of the Antichrist is described in the last and 22nd of 22 books in the Bible that have a total of 22 chapters. All right, now the thing is that the country of Indonesia is made up of 34 provinces, which is one reason why God uses the number 34 as symbolism for Barack Obama. And that's explained in other videos. It also points to Isaiah chapter 34, the chapter in the Bible that regards judgment on the nations that will come through the Antichrist, which is also why the Indonesian tsunami, which hit many countries around the world, emanated from Indonesia. and on and on. And Barack Obama entered politics at the age of 34, and on and on. And by the way, when he did, he represented the 13th district of Illinois as senator in the Illinois Senate. Now, the thing is that Mike Ditka, and I forget the prophetic sign, he was actually once upon a time a Chicago Bears player, but for the 85 Bears, he was the coach. The reason why I mentioned that is because there is a prophetic sign involving the Bears when he played for them, but I simply forget it at this point. I apologize. But the point is that Mike Ditka is prophetic, and he said that his only regret was not letting their star running back, Walter Payton, score a touchdown. This is very important, very, very important. Walter Payton is number 34, which, by the way, confirms the 23 years from this Super Bowl to the eclipse over the country with 34 provinces, Indonesia. But Walter Payton is known as the GOAT running back, the greatest of all time running back. Very important, Hall of Famer, most famous player, died at an early age, and how he is commemorated because he was such a good guy. He did a lot of community work. He helped, donated a lot of his time and money to helping people, etc. And every year they have an annual award, the Walter Payton Award, which goes to the player that does the most community service, or is recognized for their community service work. So anyway, it's really sad in a way that the star player here didn't get to score a touchdown in this Super Bowl, the one Super Bowl he played in. But that's why Mike Ditka said it was his only regret. But this is part of the story, because instead of Walter Payton scoring the touchdown, it was this player named William Perry. Now, this guy, Perry, was nicknamed the Refrigerator. He was a fan favorite. It was his rookie year, this 85 Bears season, but the fans loved him. The defensive coach, who became famous for the 46 defense, and this is the reason why the Bears were so successful, he refused to use this guy, Refrigerator, which had been drafted for their defense. And so Mike Ditka ended up using him on offense occasionally to score touchdowns, like 1-yard touchdowns. And that was the case. The Bears were at the 1-yard line. And so instead of giving it to Walter Payton, he gave it to William Perry to please the fans in a way, probably. So it's speculated. And so this guy, Perry, ran in for the touchdown. At the time that he got the ball, it was 44 points on the board. Okay, so, or his score made it 44 points. I apologize. And that is confirmation, obviously, because we are talking about the Bears pointing to the 44th president, the Chicago Bears, the 44th president from Chicago, etc. And it pairs with the 23s I just mentioned, 23 years, for example. And this guy, Perry, this is one of the most famous Super Bowl plays in all of Super Bowl history. Because the reason why sorry, I should have mentioned, this player is 350 pounds. That's why he's the fan favorite. He's just this massive guy, and he's not supposed to be an offensive running back. He's just so big, but he's actually quite quick and fast. And so the fans loved him for all that, right? And so anyway, when he ran in this touchdown, which is because of this, not partly because of who he is, but also how he got the touchdown, he just ran over this other defensive guy. For the Patriots, by the way, which is important. It was the Patriots that were in the game. It was their first Super Bowl. It was player number 50. He just rolled right over him. And so this guy was slow to get up afterwards, but he said to his teammate as he was getting picked up by his teammate, he said, "Yeah, I'm fine, but I just made ESPN highlights for eternity," unquote, which literally is the case, because this touchdown is definitely a highlight of like one of the most famous plays in Super Bowl history. He was number 50 for the Patriots. The Patriots, again, symbolizes America and the spiritual founding of America. The number 50 symbolizes Pentecost, which literally means 50th day, and Pentecost symbolism for the church. This, in other words, was a judgment warning for the church with the Chicago player running him over. And so it was very prophetic judgment warning for the church, okay? Also, the player's number, this is huge. The player's number, William Perry, is number 72. And that's so important because we're talking about the 85 Bears and the debate as to which team is the GOAT, the greatest of all time football team, and the other team being the 72 Dolphins, the team that went undefeated. And that was a nod, God giving a prophetic nod to the 72. And if you recall, the 72 Dolphins are integral in this sign of the Bears, because again, it makes them not the undefeated team, because the only team that beat them were the Dolphins. And I just explained it all, and all of the 13 symbolism in the Dolphins, which lends to the adding 13 years to when they visited Obama at the White House. It's so very, very important, the 72 Bears. There wouldn't be this Chicago Bears prophetic sign if it weren't for the 72 Bears. And that's why this most famous touchdown in their Super Bowl was from player number 72. Once this prediction has come to pass, you should know that you need to watch every minute of every video on this channel and read the homepage of the website trumpprediction.com or harriscrashprediction.com. Time is running out, and if for some reason you don't have enough time to watch all of the videos on this channel, I will leave a list of the most important videos in the description box below this video or on the homepage of the website. In terms of God's prophetic signs and knowing what God is doing, after having watched this video, you are now one of the most informed people on the planet. The question is, what will you now do with this information? And how many people will you help get this video to? Keep on posting the link to this video everywhere in social media. And if you would like the PDF file for the flyer I hand out on busy street corners, place on car windshields in busy parking lots, and put in mailboxes, please contact me at darrenjacksinbox@gmail.com. In my opinion, every single believer, unless they have a health condition, should be doing something like this in the streets every day. Also, everyone should have some of these flyers in their pockets, handing them out as they go about their daily business, when they walk from their car into the bank or to the grocery store. As they walk up and down the aisles of the grocery store, hand them out to people. I personally don't know what someone is thinking if they are not doing this. And if someone thinks that they are too shy to do this, what I have to say is get over it. Courage isn't a lack of fear. It is action in spite of it. And God wants us to be courageous for him. Ezekiel 33:6. But if the watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet, so that the people are not warned, and the sword comes and takes any of them, that person is taken away in his iniquity, but his blood I will require at the watchman's hand. Revelation 12:8. But as for the cowardly, the faithless, and in this case faithless implies a doing action, the detestable, as for the murderers, the sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars, their portion will be in the lake that burns with fire and sulfur, which is the second death. In other words, this is a warning to be courageous and not cowardly or lazy. I personally believe that the flyer that I hand out is absolutely what is needed right now. But if it isn't my flyer, everyone should be handing out something as they go about their daily business. I personally believe that everyone has 20 minutes to an hour a day at least to be handing out flyers in these last days. But if you for some reason don't think that you do, you can be handing them out as you go about your daily business. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. The Pope is the first of the two antichrists. Catholicism isn't the Bible and isn't Christianity. There will likely be a massive Mary ghost that the whole world will see, but it will be demonic deception. Praying to Mary is praying to demons. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. All of the supernatural experiences that Catholics experience that confirm for them that Catholicism is true are demonic deception. The same applies to all other false religions and New Age spirituality. In 2 Thessalonians, it says we get the deception we ask for. In other words, it is foolish to rely on spiritual or mystical experiences, and those that do are asking for demonic deception. The supernatural highs from yoga and meditation are demonic deception. They are the counterfeit Holy Spirit. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. There is absolutely no New Age or collective consciousness type of explanation for how these predictions were known ahead of time. They were known ahead of time through Bible prophecy and watching for God's prophetic signs. Jesus was not just another supposed enlightened master like the supposedly enlightened Buddha. Jesus was God incarnate, and he is the only way to eternal life and to God the Father. Jesus died for you. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. The purpose of the predictions in this video, the reason for God giving me a voice through these predictions in this video that will come to pass, is to prove the following things. The God of the Bible and Israel is the true God. God has a son, and he died for everyone. Everyone can be saved if they repent of sin and put their trust in him. That what is being explained on this channel is God's true big picture of signs. That the other assertions in this video are true, including that the doctrine of imminence, that we cannot know the precise day of his return, is false. That the doctrine that we cannot know right now the identity of the Antichrist is false. The VACCINEs are a spiritual abomination. The VACCINE is the mark of the Antichrist. It is not a supposed precursor to the mark of the Antichrist. The VACCINE is part of a transformative process that is leading to demonic possession. As Bible prophecy says, those that take the mark of the Antichrist are going to hell. The reason God has given me a voice through this prediction is to absolutely prove that the Nicolaitan doctrine of our day, that Jesus said he hates and is coming to make war with the sword of his mouth on those that teach and have the works that are a result of this false doctrine, which is a false gospel and doctrine straight from the pits of hell, is sovereign grace, commonly known as irresistible grace, which comes in the package called Calvinism, and what is called free grace, commonly referred to as unconditional grace, sometimes referred to as easy believism or cheap grace. It comes in a package called dispensationalism. Sovereign grace and free grace both come to the heretical conclusion of once saved, always saved. No one is saved past tense. No one is saved until they get to heaven, and one must remain in the faith while they are here on earth, which includes taking action. Sovereign grace and free grace can be properly referred to as antinomianism, a word rooted in Latin meaning against law. This heretical theology produces other related heretical doctrine. That is also the Nicolaitan doctrine of our day that Jesus said he hates and is coming to make war with the sword of his mouth, such as no lordship salvation, which is the opposite of what the followers of no lordship salvation disparagingly call lordship salvation, the doctrine of predestination of the elect, that people are predestined before birth to go to heaven or hell. This doctrine that is straight from the pits of hell, which has its origin through Calvin and Luther and Augustine in the Gnostics, which John in his letters called Antichrist. Watch the links to videos in the description box below that refute the passages that these people claim support this doctrine of predestination of the elect. Once saved, always saved, also known as eternal security. The myth of imputed righteousness. Our righteousness is as filthy rags, a verse that Martin Luther isolated to develop his unfortunate theology, and the doctrine that all Christians will be raptured. Through God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, God has indisputably pointed to and identified these Nicolaitan doctrines. He has pointed to sovereign grace and free grace specifically. And again, the purpose for this prediction and the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove this. When this prediction comes to pass, it will prove everything that I have just said. The majority of Christianity follows these doctrines. It is also the reason why the majority of Christianity is not able to recognize the mark of the Antichrist, and why they are presently in the process of taking the mark of the Antichrist. It is judgment on the church. The lukewarm church of Laodicea that has lost its saltiness and is no longer good for anything except to be trampled under the feet of men. Had the mark been completely obvious to every Christian, it would have defeated this purpose of deceiving those that have lost their saltiness. The dispensational belief in a supposed distinction between supposed church age saints and tribulation saints is a product of their false Nicolaitan doctrine of free grace or unconditional grace. This false belief in supposed church age saints and tribulation saints is wicked deception, and it is one reason why the followers of this doctrine are deceived into believing that the VACCINE, as it is right now in its current form, is not the mark of the Antichrist, and is instead a supposed precursor to the mark of the Antichrist. In other words, they do not have the spiritual eyes to perceive the truth because it is judgment on them for this doctrine. The ongoing argument between, on the one side, sovereign grace Calvinists and free grace dispensationalists, and those that don't have a systematic theology, a systematic way of interpreting the Bible, non-Calvinists and non-dispensationalists that believe we have a free will, not some sort of unnecessary paradox between predeterminism and a free will, but a genuine, sincere free will, is very real. Each side believes the other side is very gravely and dangerously wrong, and therefore one side is in fact very gravely and dangerously wrong. The prediction in this video proves that God has demonstrated with which side he is very angry and which is gravely and dangerously wrong. That said, however, there was no excuse for people that follow sovereign grace and free grace theology and have the works that are a result of this theology, because all one needed to do was not ignore the countless passages that contradict their theology and read the Bible as a whole instead of isolating passages in order to proof text their position. Doctrine is important. One of the problems within evangelical culture is anti-intellectualism, which says that one's ignorance is equal to another one's knowledge. Hosea 4:6. My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Because you have rejected knowledge, I reject you from being a priest to me. Make sure you watch the videos that I will link to in the description box below regarding doctrine. Learn what the early church fathers believed and how it does not comport with what Christians believe today, and how they would see what Christians believe today as being heresy. Learn what the early church fathers believed before the Western church was corrupted by Augustine in the 5th century, when he joined the Catholic Church after being an official auditor in the Gnostic Manichaean sect for 9 years. After this prediction has come to pass, and the warning I am making here, I don't know what in the world someone is thinking if they choose to not watch all of the videos in the description box regarding doctrine. Also visit the website predictionsproveit.com. The problem within the church is that Christians don't really fear God. The root of this problem of a lack of fear of God is bad theology and doctrine. There is one key verse in the Bible that is essential for understanding the Bible, which speaks to the primary importance of fear of God. Genesis 22:12. He said, "Do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God, seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me." Prior to this, God did not know that Abraham feared him, and Abraham had not demonstrated his faith. This was after God had accounted Abraham righteous for believing. James 2:17. Faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. You see that a person is justified by works and not by faith alone. James said this in context of two examples that he provided, which was how Rahab and Abraham demonstrated their faith through their actions. And this type of demonstration of faith that God is looking for typically involves risk and sacrifice. It is going to cost something. As Jesus said, one needs to become like a kernel of wheat and die and go into the ground before it can produce fruit. This death of the self before being born again costs something, and ultimately one's demonstration of faith for truth and righteousness could theoretically, literally cost someone their life. God is looking for those that fear him. It is the rare individual that fears God more than man. It is the rare individual that is willing to demonstrate his faith and fear of God and stand up for truth and righteousness. The mark of the Antichrist is beautifully designed to elicit this demonstration of faith. For example, any Christian that took the VACCINE mark of the Antichrist, knowing that fetal stem cells were used in its development, does not fear God. Also, everyone should know by now that the masks are a lie. The size of the virus is 1 micron, and no mask filters below 3 microns. Even medical masks don't prevent the virus. These masks are like trying to keep mosquitoes out of one's backyard through using a chain link fence. This is why before it became political, every single Western country, as part of their protocol for a possible pandemic, included not recommending masks for the population, which is why even Fauci recommended not wearing masks at the beginning of COVID. For those with spiritual eyes to see, it is clear that wearing the masks is for the purpose of virtue signaling that you are a member of the COVID cult, and ultimately they demonstrate spiritual allegiance to Satan. The masks are for identifying the enemy and waging political and spiritual war on conservatives and Christians. If there is a supposed precursor to the VACCINE, it is definitely masks. No Christian should be wearing masks unless it is absolutely necessary, like boarding an airplane. And Christians should not be participating in religious worship inside a church with other people wearing masks. These people are deceived, period. It doesn't matter. They are deceived. They might be nice people. They might seem like Christians, but if they are wearing masks and social distancing inside a church, they don't get it, and they are part of the COVID cult, which is about spiritual allegiance to Satan. Most people believe that the Nicolaitan works Jesus referred to was gross, blatant sinning, and that the Nicolaitan doctrine is somehow the perverse doctrine in, quote, those other churches, unquote, but certainly not in their church. This is absolutely not true. God's big picture of signs has undeniably communicated that the Nicolaitan doctrine is what I have outlined here, and the vast majority of Christianity follows this doctrine. An example of Nicolaitan works and someone that does not fear God is someone that is not handing out flyers. This Nicolaitan works is expressed, for example, with someone that has been hypnotized by the political cult of COVID and is wearing masks. And wearing a mask in a place of worship in church is an abomination. This Nicolaitan works is expressed with someone that is not speaking out against the evil that is overtaking the land, which includes, for example, speaking out against people in church wearing masks. Eric Metaxas is currently being blacklisted by the Sovereign Grace Calvinists for drawing the parallel between these faith alone doctrine Christians and the Christians in Nazi Germany. Metaxas has rightly claimed that the evangelical church is on the hook for and is responsible for the stolen election. Those supposed Christians that are idly standing by and not taking action and speaking out against the evil that is marching over the land are the Nicolaitans. They are the lazy, lukewarm, cowardly Christians, and they have lost their saltiness. They are no longer good for anything except to be trampled under the feet of men, which is why many of them are taking the VACCINE mark of the Antichrist, which is the inverse of the mark that was given in Ezekiel chapter 9 to those that were crying out for justice and righteousness. Contrary to the false doctrine of dispensationalism, which is the package in which free grace comes in, which says that there is supposedly a distinction between supposed church-age saints and tribulation saints, which, by the way, is a main reason why these evangelicals are not able to recognize the mark of the Antichrist, which is this VACCINE. It is judgment on these Christians from God for this free grace dispensationalism, church age saints versus tribulation saints false doctrine. The truth is the main purpose of the end times period is to test the faith of saints. And this test comes through the Antichrist and the persecution and the mark of the Antichrist. It is designed to compel these lukewarm Christians to finally stand up for truth and righteousness and demonstrate their faith through risk and sacrifice. And those that will be raptured, those that will be spared the tribulation, those that will be worthy to escape the things that are coming, as Jesus said to always pray for, will be those that have already passed the test of faith. They will be those that have already demonstrated their faith through risk and sacrifice. This is what I believe is the primary distinction between who will be spared the tribulation and who will not, given that the purpose of the tribulation is to test the faith of the saints. It is an act of God's love, because if we had not done so, having then gotten to the kingdom, we will have regretted it, not demonstrating our faith and doing more and taking a risk for him and sacrificing for him. And so those that have already been doing that do not need to go through the tribulation. And this, I believe, is what would constitute being worthy of escaping the things that are coming. Obviously, when these predictions come to pass, you will know that you should watch all of the videos on this channel, beginning with the videos that are linked to in the description box below this video. I strongly recommend not going through the videos on this channel in random fashion, selecting titles that may be interesting, but rather I strongly recommend following my recommendations that are listed in the description box below this video. This channel is not a daily or weekly update on the latest news. Rather, this channel is a library that has documented God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections. Hopefully you at least found this introduction video to be interesting, and if so, please leave a like and upvote the video, and please consider sharing the video. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, TrumpPrediction.com, or PredictionsProveIt.com, and also check out the other information that I have linked to on the website. You should also pause this video right now and make a note of my other social media outlets. You never know when you will need them, and you might not be able to find them later. Also, if you want to download these videos as podcasts, I now have a podcast channel at Podbean, which is named Predictions Prove It.